Welcome, everybody, to the Experience Economy podcast again. This is where we talk to brand and marketing experts about the massive transition that I'm seeing here in the marketplace, moving from product and service businesses to a more of an experience economy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything from technology to machine learning, IoT connected devices, hyper personalization, all things that are changing the way we communicate with our customers, create value for our customers, interact. We're talking through these really provocative challenges with our guests, find out from them what they think companies need to do to answer this challenge and what they're doing personally in either their company or their industry to engage in becoming an experience provider rather than a product or service company. Today, I'm really excited. I get to introduce Tony Scelzo, CEO of Ceemless. Tony's got a broad breadth of experience. I've known Tony, I don't know, what is it, 10, 11, 12 years, something like
Been
that.
a while, man. We've been together two companies.
Yeah, we've been on the,
I've had two, and you've had two names.
There you go. He's been at the forefront of agency work for the past 10 years that I've known him, helping clients, get new clients. Tony has experience in hospitality and franchising. We've spent a lot of time in franchising over the past couple of podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Dedicated learner, pretty much, if I'm not mistaken, 4 to 6 books a month. His tenacity, his drive, it's limitless. He spends way too much time on the golf course. But with that, it's a great pleasure to not meet you, but introduce you, Tony, and welcome to the Experience Economy podcast. Did I miss anything?
No, man. I appreciate you having me. I'm excited about doing this. I think we think a lot alike in where we see the puck going, and we're both trying to skate to it. And it's just I know this is something that we're passionate about at Ceemless. I mean, it's the whole name to create these value experiences that are seamless between people, product, four walls, the service. Whether it's tech enablement or really experience design. A lot of times we're spending that on the prospect experience, which is a whole nother, we seamlessly should move from a prospect to a customer to create new value wherever the client journey leads us. And I know journey is a big word for you and everything you guys are doing over there at Maestro. Fun to be here. Fun to talk about, where we see the puck going.
I appreciate you joining us. I mean, everything you said is right on. Ceemless is a B2B service provider, really helping clients, companies make this transition, right? From providing products and services to what I consider truly delivering on the experience economy. So assuming I'm right in that, this is really a multifaceted question, which is, one, tell me about Ceemless, how to get started, what it came to be. Yeah. And more importantly, as you moving beyond that, what problems are you actually solving in the market?
Well, Ceemless came to be because I feel like the promise of technology is not being kept, right? I mean, it is, technology is supposed to make our world better. It's supposed to be a lever. If you think about its most basic, beginnings, it was, literally a lever using to move a rock so we could move more weight. If all the way to the bow and arrow, or two stones striking each other to create fire, not to be too basic, but that's really what technology is supposed to do, and we feel like it's failing to keep that experience. We feel like it's failing to keep that promise, right? So why is that? Well, the companies that are really changing the world are designing and delivering a different experience. Sometimes we don't even recognize, right? I mean, if you'd have asked us 25 years ago if we'd have spent $5 for a cup of coffee 4 days a week, we probably thought you were crazy, right? But we do, and the $5 chuck is a embedded part of our life. It's not because it's is it just coffee, or is it luxury, or is it the third place? Or is the office away from the office? I don't know, but it's definitely created a different part of our world that we cannot.
Well, for you, it's office away from the office,
right?
Office away from the golf course is maybe a better way to put it.
Right. Well, exactly. right? And I think that's part of because these people have had the guts to, Schultz has had the guts to reimagine where we're going to go and what is the value that people need out of that. The thing that Ceemless always comes back to, and this is one of the reasons we're a partner with you, is that, in order to deliver that ubiquitous experience, whether you're a small screen, a big screen, email, text, four walls, what have you, you have to have a single source of truth. You have to know where your customer journey, and you have to track.
What is a single? Before you go on with that, what is a single source of truth?
Yeah, a single source of truth in our world is like, where do we track and measure how this experience is delivered and how we're doing against what we designed, right? Okay. And so one of the reasons that we're excited about our partnership with Maestro is because we can blueprint what we want ideal to be, and we can execute against that. And until you understand how to control and manage uniformly, you cannot design and execute. And that's part of the challenge we help mid-market businesses do to solve is like how to choose where to have that single source of truth and then how to execute that. That's a if you're going to solve this problem, you gotta start with that first step, and that's part of what we see companies struggle with, right?
Yeah. I mean, you and I've been down this road a long time, and one of the things that I think a lot of companies don't realize is and you touched on it a little bit, but one of the things I think companies don't really realize is how much technology is an impediment to what they're doing, and it's no longer that lever that they can use. And I say that because 20 years ago, technology, at least the way we think of technology now, was technology was a CRM. It was a point of sale system, whatever that was. But then they needed something for accounting, or maybe they already had something, but they needed something for accounting. They needed something to help them with collections. They needed something to manage inventory. They needed all these different add-ons, and not one of them actually talked to one another. And so you have team members that all they're doing is managing all of these different systems, but they're never actually when those systems don't talk to each other, it creates a whole different problem. And I think that's exactly why Ceemless was started to solve that problem.
Well, and you have to, to understand any kind of environment, you gotta understand what are the incentives in that environment, right? And so venture capitalists were excited by these high valuations of these SaaS-based companies because we're spending $1 and we're making a lifetime value of $15 to $18, right? That's sexy, and venture capitalists love that, and the banking community got behind it, the stock market got behind it, and we started with Salesforce and it exploded from there, right? Yeah. But even Salesforce is a great example of violating the promise, right? I mean, I've been doing support around SaaS companies, whether it's Salesforce or HubSpot or Marketo or all the funnel management platforms that are out there. I've never had anybody say that Salesforce helped them sell something. You know what I mean? Think about it. Like, did it really work to help you sell?
It's a really expensive contact manager the way most companies use it. And
it becomes a necessary evil that you're running your business on, and it's too hard to leave. But that's not really delivering more value to salespeople. That's not really delivering more value to the customer, right? And so where the disruption is coming, and this is what you and I are betting on, I think, it's like the disruption is coming because we actually have to deliver more value. Innovation is value creation when you really get down to it. And so in order to understand what value you're creating, you have to know what outcome you're trying to create for your customer. And I think that's part of where this reimagination is coming in. And so, is Uber helping people move to get to places, or is it a SaaS-based business? Who knows, right? It's a tech-enabled service that has many magic moments that we love and has become a utility in our life. We literally cannot live without on some levels because of how they've reimagined this experience of traveling. And I think that's part of what's amazing of what we're seeing the opportunity to have. It's like the technology that drives Uber is not that. I mean, it's really not that big a deal. but it's the combination of those experiences between the small screen, the car, the driver, the passenger, the way it takes my money, the way I can securely move from place to place and trust a network. That's where the value is coming. It's that experience that they're delivering. And I think that's what we're starting to see. It's like no longer is it the disruptive technologies that are really creating that bleeding edge. It's the disruptive business models and experience delivery that is really cutting the edge for businesses that are moving, this economy.
Right. So you touched on a couple things, and when I doing this several times, one of the things that I like to refer to is stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
Because every company has various stakeholders. You're typically not driving a customer experience for yourself, and I say that a little liberally, because what you're doing in Ceemless is you're helping other clients reimagine what that customer experience really is.
Mm-hmm.
So as we talk through this, feel free to use your clients as examples in this particular arena, but your clients are you're a B2B business.
Mm-hmm.
And your clients are businesses that typically are going to have some sort of consumer, whether it's a B2B or B2C. And so there's various stakeholders. And one of those stakeholders obviously have to do with internal stakeholders.
Yeah.
So not only you having to sell this vision or help companies understand this vision, but you've got to get buy-in from various pieces, various elements. So before I really share what my vision of customer experience or customer journey is, can you tell me what those two terms, what you think of, what that elicits in your mind?
Yeah, well, stakeholders in our world are internal and external customers, right? We look at them as one and the same, and whether you're creating more value for an internal customer or creating more value for an external customer, you're always creating more value for a customer. And whether it's like in your example, I would think the Uber example of stakeholder could be the driver, the stakeholder could be the passenger, the stakeholder could be the location that you might be getting food from to deliver from A to B. The point is you're almost always in the relentless pursuit of creating less friction or more value, right? And it's either positive or a negative. And there's some really basic exchanges that people make in giving up more money, more data, for less friction. Facebook is famous for their user agreement, and that they basically own all your data after you upload your profile. But we give that up because it's easier to share with the mom and dad, the family photos, and keep everybody up to speed than it is to try to do that myself. That exchange has been made, and that value creation has been given. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about when we're there's some basic things that have to happen in the business world. One good example where we're working on together is the pool company that's trying to deliver new value to their internal customers, or to the external customers. They're basically right now there's competition where I can go buy pool chemicals from Amazon and might be able to shave 10-15% of the cost of that by remembering to do that, setting up a reminder and going on Amazon. But if I want the guy that's already going to my pool, that installed my filter system, that understands all the requirements, that has all the data on everything I own, to service it and just add it on as part of the ownership of having that pool, I can just create that value and have that happen, through a mobile app, through an IoT sensor that's in the pool that's telling us what chemicals to buy. I don't even have to think about it. And I think that's where people are making this exchange, is the less things they have to focus on, the less things they have to do. We're constantly making that exchange of time for more value, right? One of the things that I like to use as an example when I'm trying to get people to understand this is, think about how many restaurant concepts are doing this, right? Like, we get more and more different restaurant concepts every year, but retail is dying. And restaurants give us time. They give us opportunity to eat and experience new cultures, and to not cook and to not clean up, right? So they're exploding in value creation, yet retail is dying, right? Because of that time exchange. And if you just think about it from that most basic that standpoint, that's what we're always trying to do. We're trying to buy back more of our time. We're trying to get more of our life back. And
Time
so,
and money.
go ahead. Sorry.
Time and money. I mean, it's what it all comes
It's
down to.
time,
Time and
money, and
money.
energy, right? And there's a value exchange that we make in our mind that said this is either worth time, it's worth enough money, or it's worth enough energy for me to give this up or take this back, right? And I think that's really what it gets down to when you're understanding why we're moving from a product and service company or product and service economy to an experience economy is like, man, if you can give me like a fractional offering where I don't necessarily own a car, or I don't necessarily own a hot rod, or I don't necessarily own a vacation home, but I can have the experience of those things, and I don't have to think about it, and I don't have the energy, and I can just show up when I want to. That's where the explosion of growth is. And
So
so,
what is it? What do you think of when I say customer experience or customer journey? How do you define that yourself?
wow, it changes for every single client. I really think it goes back to what is the problem we're really solving, right? For when I think of Maestro, I think of one source of truth. I think of execution 100% of the time, all the time. I think about not having to have somebody like human beings are not very good at executing the same thing 100% of the time, right? And that's where automation can really shine. But optimizing human beings to do the one or two things that make that experience significant, because you've taken all that minutia off their plate and you're executing 100% of the time. I think that's kind of the value play for Maestro, right? It's that no, it's done 100% of the time the way you designed it, the way you set the blueprint. And that's really where you have to create the space of time and energy and money, right, for people to even think that way, right? If they're logging into 25 different systems trying to execute, one experience that they think that they've designed, then it's a cluster, right? And it's hard, it's too hard to execute. And a lot of people just throw up their hands, right? They get stacked. We call it stack fatigue, right? I mean, we're doing more software remediation rather than recommendation, right? It's like get us out of these 8 of these 10 things and help us choose something that really makes sense for what we're trying to get done.
So, what are you've done this for quite a while, and I could answer this question too myself, but what is one of the biggest misconceptions that you think the marketplace has today with regard to, I mean, part of it is everyone has their own idea of what customer experience or customer journey is. What's the biggest misconception in the marketplace?
They bought something that they think is supposed to solve the problem. Like they buy plumbing and they have no idea what's going in the plumbing. And so they think that the plumbing solved the water problem, but if there's no well at the end of the plumbing, right? If there's nothing to push through that, or it's not done well, or it hasn't even been hooked up. I'm talking to a client. I'm just giving you a really simple example. I'm talking to a client that's spending $3,000 a month on Pardot, right? It's Pardot is a marketing automation platform, really good tool. They sent out one email in the last 6 months, right? One email to a list of 15,000 people in the last 6 months. So that their average cost per email is $18,000 an email. You know what I mean? And they said, we got pretty good data on it. We found out that half of our list was bad, but no one's taken the time to write another email to this message. And no one's even looked at the analytics. And I think that's part of the problem. They think that the plumbing solve the tool, solve the problem, and not understanding its people, its process, and its technology working in concert to deliver value.
Yeah, I would think, from my perspective, I think people underestimate the repetitive nature of their business, and that's why Maestro exists, is because we want to take all of those repetitive, repeatable and repetitive aspects of your business and then automate it, define it. But by defining it, we create a blueprint for it, and then From there, it pretty much gets automated. And we
Yeah.
call that decision automation, because just knowing you have to do something doesn't mean you know what you have to do yet. There's a lot of analysis that goes into
I
uh,
think, as you say that, I
demand.
think you're 100% right. I think benchmarking, knowing what, do you even know what you do every month? Do you even know how well it gets done? Do you, like, I think one of the simple examples of Maestro is, reminders and callbacks, for people to show up on an appointment, or to come in to get my cleaning done every 6 months or a year, or whatever it is. I think that just did we do the reminder? Did we see if they responded? Did they open it? Like, all those things that are simple things that just don't get done every time. If it's sitting behind a human being, and somebody's got to remember to make it happen to your point, to the point earlier, like, anytime a human being has to be responsible for doing something all the time, it's not going to get done. In fact, we would argue that if you have to rely on a person rather than a system to execute something that has to be done 100% of the time, you're just kidding yourself on whether or not it's actually a standard that you hold to the organization, right? And I think that's kind of what you see with your tool. I think the other thing of that is the most important problem. We, in the pool business, we talk about people having a shelf life, okay? And in the customer service business, which we're almost all of us are in, especially these days, if you have to remember to do something every single time, you have a shelf life, because you will get tired of being complained about when it didn't happen from your manager and the customer, right? If you
I mean,
didn't,
how often do any of us get anything done when it isn't on our calendar nowadays?
right, and so, or have to be reminded to do something every single time, or to say something every single time, and so what happens is you get this perpetual burnout, right? Because people are never living up to what is designed as the customer experience they're trying to, and we're watching a lot of these service-based businesses with 100, 150. I mean, I think the average turnover in the restaurant business alone is 150%. I mean, how do you succeed at anything when you're turning over more than your entire staff every year, right? It's you have to automate, and you have to deliver as much as you possibly can through technology that can be controlled and designed and executed, and actually learn, the user to optimize for their response, so the people who are delivering the service can add in that special, pixie dust, if you will, that makes those experiences that much more exceptional. I think
So
that's
when I
what we're learning.
Yeah, so when I think of customer experience myself, I kind of define it as every real or perceived interaction that a company has, or that they should have, with a customer, from the customer's perspective, not the company's. So, perfect example of that is Nordstrom. I don't think there's anybody on earth that doesn't consider Nordstrom to have the best customer experience on earth when someone's in the store.
Yep.
There's also three ways to buy from Nordstrom, right? You can buy on the phone, over the web, or in the store. When I go into the store, I've got a salesperson. That salesperson sells me something. I'm really happy. I go home. I return that product because I get home and realize, maybe something's wrong with it. Don't know. Doesn't fit right.
Yeah.
So I call up the call center. I don't want to go back to the store. So I call up the call center, issue an RMA, and they go ahead and they send me something out. I box it up, send it back in. Problem is, in this entire thing, once I left that store, that salesperson who made sure that I was really happy
Yeah.
no longer knows that I'm not happy.
Yeah.
Right? But when we think of perceived interaction, the customer doesn't really think necessarily, hey, that salesperson should have called me to see if I got that the product sent to me. But when you round out this experience from a real or perceived perspective, the ideal experience is that salesperson, one, is always in the know, and two, has a notification to pick up the phone and call me when I've received my new product, essentially,
Yeah. Well,
in the mail, so that from that customer's perspective, not only was that salesperson in the know and on the ball when I was there, but they actually were able to have that the wherewithal to know that, hey, something was wrong, something was amiss, and called to make sure that, hey, is everything now okay?
and we, like, you and I both both really like picking on Nordstrom, because not only are you right that they're no one hand doesn't know what the other hand's doing. They're actually incentivized, whether it's Nordstrom.com, Nordstromrack.com. They're all incentivized by their own P&L. So there's no ubiquitous, understanding of the customer experience across the online and the four walls model. And so they're actually competing against each other to try to deliver a different experience.
Yeah.
And instead of working in concert to deliver the best value to their customer base.
What's interesting is, real quick, an aside of that is that I've had conversation with a pretty high up SVP of something, I can't remember, but at Oracle. All of Nordstrom's systems run off of Oracle. Mm-hmm. And the root of all of Nordstrom's issues from a customer experience perspective that I just addressed is that when I buy on the phone, I as a consumer can buy on the phone, on the web, or in the store. But if I'm a consumer and do all three of those, I am three separate customers to Nordstrom. Yeah. There's no what you talk about, right? You mentioned it earlier. There is no single source of truth that I, Bryce, made this purchase in the store, came home, called the call center, had an RMA, or was issued an RMA, had a product. It's just insane.
And that's technology debt that was made as decisions, probably a decade ago, right? Right, where the data architecture wasn't set up, and they haven't really felt enough pain to make the change to embrace and pay off that technology debt. Or somebody's not smart as you and me to help them really understand that they need to do that, right? Whereas you look at when you're in a Starbucks or you're online or on your mobile, when you're doing almost, I think Starbucks went up to 35% of their revenue. It might have even been more was mobile when, in COVID, and they were just killing everybody in the coffee space even more than they do before, because they were so set up to deliver that experience ubiquitously through that small screen, right? And to get your points and your incentives, to customize that experience based on your location, and to deliver it in the best way you could through the small screen. And they were Domino's, another good example. Domino's, has its best quarter ever, the same quarter that Pizza Hut files Chapter 11. Well, one is fully embraced, delivering their value through whatever means possible seamlessly. And then the other would be that, Pizza Hut that's got probably a better product that couldn't do that at all, right? And I think that's part of what we're seeing.
So I'll take a little bit of issue, where people don't know. People don't know without people like us. I would actually venture to say that they're just stuck in the same old rut that they're in. Meaning they have, daily responsibilities, monthly responsibilities, P&L responsibilities. And they've been sold this bill of goods from companies like McKinsey and, the big consulting companies that customer experience is all about that online review, or the customer experience is all about that, ultimate question that they call it, will you refer us? And, while those are elements associated with a customer journey, most companies, when they look at customer journey and they have touch points that they're managing somewhere between 10 to 20, right? Mm-hmm. When we go through and we map an actual journey, it's not uncommon to go from 10 to 20 touch points to 150 to 300 touch points that need to be managed. And if someone's got, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 customers, you're right now making 10 or 20 decisions a day on every customer.
70 or 80 with a pool company, right? Just
and that's only a small portion of their actual journey.
Correct, right? And so when you start to really understand how many interactions you want to have, idealistically, like you want to thank somebody on their birthday, or you want to wish them a happy birthday, you want to know that it's coming up, you want to optimize them with an offer so they can spend money with you on their birthday. As an example, I'm just using this because it's one of the top of mind. but the birthday marketing, I want to say the last time I checked on it, it's a 5 times multiple that you're going to respond, right? That you will convert if somebody recognizes early, and if they reward, it's like a 5 times multiple. When's the last time you really had somebody effectively market on your birthday? It almost that doesn't exist, right? It's
Rarely.
almost non-existent in the we're seeing this a lot in the restaurant space, where like most restaurants that have loyalty programs are pretty much demarketing with their loyalty, because they so poorly execute, and they so poorly recognize the customer, that they actually piss off the regulars that they're actually meant to reward. And it's demarketing, right? And so why should I have to remember something if I'm in your place 5-6 times a week? This thing right here knows I'm in the place, right? It knows where I'm at. Why do I have to think to get out a card to get you to remind you to have a server registered? Like 6 to 7 touches it takes just to get recognized as one of the people that keep the light on in your facility. And that's how it really doesn't need to be that way. It doesn't, especially with the technology that we have available to ourselves, like your tool and like some of the other. But it's really getting out of the paradigm of that I'm in the food cost and labor cost business, and I'm in the experience design of recognizing and treating my guests that they have the best guest experience they have. And I think that's what we're starting to see from COVID, as you have some of the like the Uber Eats and all these other intermediaries have taken serious margin dollars out of restaurant space. They're really reimagining. Man, we need to get our own mobile strategy. We need a mobile engagement strategy. We need to figure out how we can track down and leverage some of this, the loyalty that we've been given up to the Uber Eats and the DoorDashes of the world, and just literally being robbed blind of the margin that they deserve. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said for both sides of it, right? I mean, the Grubhubs or the Uber Eats, they're just solving a problem that already exists in the economy itself. So can't blame them.
Well, they're smarter. They're
But
smarter.
I mean,
Smarter at applying technology to deliver an
I
augmented
don't.
part of
Yeah,
that
I don't.
experience.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I mean, think about something simple in an experience design. Something could use someone like a medical office, or something like a pool company that's doing regular recurring service every week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. Why in the world are we not? Why in the world are we doing appointment reminders and confirmations to someone that's 2 months behind on billing? I mean, how billing doesn't couple itself with that experience design is just mind blowing to me, because we're just perpetuating our own demise at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I got it. It's 5% of our customers that are behind in billing because of a more than likely just an outdated credit card number, right? It expired and we just don't have a new credit card number. Got
Well,
it.
yeah. I mean, cash flow, right? I mean, now
Yeah.
again, that's an internal customer, like the CFO, the CPA. That's a customer that wants to get, would love to get his discount rate up. His collections down, right? I mean, we're seeing that we have another platform that we use. It's all revenue cycle management, and it's for hospitals. I mean, 42% of administrative 42 the average provider is 42% administrative expense. Half of that is in the collecting of money, right? So just think about every dollar you spend on a provider, 40 some percent is administrative expense. It's double every other business out there. Why do we say that's okay? Well, because we don't know what we don't know, and there's the payer, the provider, so it's a little bit more complex. But in this day and age, with technology doing what it should be able to do, it's a failure to keep the promise of what it's supposed to do.
So you're out there talking to a lot of businesses every week.
Mm-hmm.
Having a vision is one thing, right? We talked about this a little earlier. You
Mm-hmm.
got various stakeholders. Having a vision is one thing.
Yeah.
You having a vision for a client is one thing.
Yep.
What is the biggest challenge? What is the biggest hurdle that your clients have, um, going from you putting a bug in their head, but basically going from ideation to completion, fruition of this process? What's the biggest hurdle that you have to overcome with a new prospect, a new client?
I think it's pretty simple, and this is probably it's overwhelming, right? It's overwhelming to not understand. A lot of business people are not engineering types. They don't know what technically can be done, should be done, or how to do it, and so they're managing resources they don't speak the same language of, right?
Right.
Um, um, but it goes back to overwhelming, right? I think the word I just keep coming back to is overwhelming. It's overwhelming. And so what we really simply what we try to get our clients to do is to set a 3-year vision like they would anything else. Like you create a 3-year sales goal. Okay, let's create a 3-year vision of where we want the value to be for the business. What's the experience we want to design, and then work your way back 90 days by 90 days by 90 days. And what you get to is you really get to the first how to eat how to eat a frog, right? You fast, but you get to what do we got to get done in the next 90 days in order to make this vision happen.
Right.
I think that's part of the courage that we try to give our C-suites is look, when you get in a car at night and you drive 1,000 miles, you can't see all the way to the destination. You only see as far as the headlights go. Right. And that's all you really need to know on stuff like this. It's like, set a vision, design where you want the experience, and then get 90 days at a time out and work your way back from there. I think that's not the answer a lot of the C-suite wants to hear, but it does work. Part of the problem, that the reason they don't want to hear that is they have been sold a bill of goods along the way from consulting firms and from companies that were SaaS-based businesses that made that overpromised, right? They just didn't they buy our solution and it does A B C D F. Well, it does if you also know what you're doing in A B C D F, right? It's kind of that Pardot example. Like you have to understand technology is only a third of it. You have to put the process in place of understanding. You have to design it, and you have to have the people who can run the plumbing. Not just install it, but run it. And I think that's part of it. Is like it's having it's a solution. It's not a product you can buy off the shelf.
Yeah, it's not an end all be all. What role? I mean, you've touched on it here and there. Mm-hmm. What role does technology play in the design, the development, the delivery process of executing on what I perceive as the ideal customer experience?
Well, I think we say tech enablement a lot, right? It can be done. It should be able to be done 100% of the time. That we should be able to recognize a customer when they walk in the door. What do we should be able to have some way to reward them, to quantify them, maybe even to grade them, to give them maybe even, I'm seeing like one of the things I used to say all the time is not all restaurant guests are created equal. If somebody's in here, they've got a reservation, for 5 every other day. And, they're a regular and they're spending $3,000 a quarter with us or even a month, that's a much better, different guest than somebody that's in once every 2 years. And so does that person do they deliver a different experience? I would argue yes, right? I think that, and they're definitely worth more to the company. And I think that's part of where we're going and how to reimagine that, how to deliver that, how to, to your point, how to move the benchmark of what we're delivering 100% of the time from here to here to here to here. That's beginning of the step. But it's getting to understand that if we can imagine it, it should be able to happen. And how do we get there? And what is the value that I one of the things I see the newer generations just expecting this, right? They just expect it.
Yeah.
Like,
Without knowing what it is, that you're absolutely right.
yeah. I mean, like, I'm, my COO's was complaining about his son ordering Wendy's. Literally, the Wendy's is a mile and a half away from his house, so he orders Uber Eats from Wendy's, pays a $5 surcharge or premium on top of the more expensive food. The food is not as hot, and I would argue not as high quality as it would have been if he'd had just gone and picked it up himself, right?
Yeah.
To save the trip, right? It's not time because he had to wait, right?
7 minutes.
So, he had to wait to get it, but he didn't have to make the trip. But that's just expected. Part of it is they have his data saved, they got his credit card saved, they have all the information there. 3 thumb clicks, and he's got his last order. And I think that's part of what that time value energy exchange is, what we're really up against, and that's part of the experience. That is as valuable to him as getting his Big E shake or fries, and apparently it's more important than having his fries hot. You know what I mean? And I think that's what we're starting to learn is that time value energy exchange is powerful, and it's changed. And COVID's proved how much it's changing everything. And that's what we got to embrace.
How do you know when you're selling a vision to somebody, that somebody's now selling a vision internally, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know when someone just gets it?
It's a good question. I think they've toiled with the experience they want to deliver, okay, and they know they're not doing it. There's a gap of where they want to be, who they want to be as an organization, what they want to do as an organization, and what they're delivering, and the gap really frustrates them. And they understand that gap is what they've got to cross in order to either to keep their competitive advantage, to gain a new competitive advantage, or deliver what they think the future is for the organization. That's it.
It's interesting. You talk about the gaps. If they're able to identify those gaps, or maybe it's you helping to bring the gaps about, right, or at least illuminate the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
How do you measure success so everything goes right? You're able to design, optimize, automate that experience automation part.
Mm-hmm.
How do you measure the success of delivering on this experience?
Well, I hate to be capitalist, but I think revenue is a great indication of where, I'm like, when you see like Starbucks is that example, doing 25, 30, now 35, almost 40% of their revenue through a mobile engagement strategy, right? When you see like a place like Domino's triumphing in the recent times with COVID, over so many other pizza places that I would argue demonstrably have a better product, right? Demonstrably have a better product. But because they really understand what business they're in, they're selling, a pizza experience or even a food experience at this point, right? When you see that, you can't make excuses to say, well, our pizza is better anymore. You have to start to get into your customers, journey, right? Going back to that word and understanding that so much more of what they're buying has so much more to do with time, energy, and money than it does with the flavor of your pizza, right? Yeah. And I think that is the rub. And if you've been in, if you're a Papa John's who was like better ingredients, better pizza, how important is better ingredients to the people actually buying that pizza?
That's an individual choice at that point, but
right.
Almost everyone's going to choose experience over anything else.
Yeah. And so that's really what we're seeing in empirical data, right? It's not just, the two bleeding hearts saying that this is where the younger generation is going. We're seeing it in top line revenue. We're seeing it in who closed and who didn't. With 25 to 30% of the independents. I mean, I think 30% of independent restaurants went out of business. And so
because of COVID, you're saying.
Yeah, a lot of it could have been avoided. There were a lot of there were tons of technology companies like myself that were offering to do text to order or text to buy programs for restaurants that really had no to go program whatsoever. And too late to the party and not trying to run out what they thought was going to be a 3-month window, didn't make it. I mean, really good restaurants that normally, crank. And I this is a great example, right? This is why they could not deliver, through a mobile strategy. And I think this is part of what we've seen. It's like, this is where we're going. This is part of the piece of the pie that we sell. And you have to recognize it and stop outsourcing it to the intermediaries, which are taking all your margin. I mean, the pizza's example is just so evident.
Yeah, I look at it a little bit different. I do think revenue is obviously a huge piece of it, right? I look at it, with tech enablement. What can we get done with tech enablement that we couldn't get done before? I mean, we can look at a really small business. Look at someone like a dental office. I mean, it's an example of most small businesses, right? Where I've got somewhere between 7 to 15 staff members or people on the payroll. I've got four or five of those that are actual revenue producing, and everyone else is essentially a staff member to try and manage the business. And on any given day, let's be generous, 10 people. How many decisions can 10 people make in a day? 100 each, 200 each. So let's be generous. Let's say that they're able to make between those 10 people 5,000 decisions a day. Well, in dental is a perfect example. There's almost 200 different touch points that exist in that patient life cycle that need to be evaluated every day. You've got 5,000 patients. Well, okay, on one hand, manually we can make, what did I say, 5,000 decisions in a best case scenario, when I should be making close to 1 million decisions a day, just looking at raw numbers.
Yeah.
And I think that's where tech enablement really comes into play. It doesn't necessarily just have to be about, hey, I invested $5, I'm getting 20 back. I'm getting 6.5 back, whatever that number is. There's also a trade-off that my staff is already overworked. I can't work them any harder than they're already working. So is there any way that I can make them more efficient, more effective with the work that they're doing? And can we get that, for every 5, I'm getting 7 back. Every 5, I'm getting 22 back, whatever the numbers really work out to be.
Even that shows up in top line revenue, right? It shows up in, one of the things that we try to get our clients to understand is that the more you automate, the more you deliver efficiencies through technology, the more revenue you make per employee. And so what should happen is if you're doing that right, like if you implemented, loyalty automation as an example, your revenue per employee goes up over time because you've optimized that relationship with those customers, right? And so it always comes back to, you can't always come back to profit or sales. And I think, we're kind of stating the obvious, but what's so important is there's, if you're guys like you and me that are talking to these people about how to make these decisions and why to invest, it's the gains are there. I think the last system you and I put in, it's 6-to-1 return year one, right? So that's part of but someone has to have a plan, and they have to have the right people and process around the technology that they're installing, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I love franchising, because franchising itself is a business that you buy You're not really the entrepreneur. You're more of an intrapreneur. You and I've talked a lot about that.
Yeah.
But I'm buying it because it's a proven system that works, right?
Yep.
Otherwise, there's no reason to franchise it.
Yep.
I think what a lot of people forget is in order to get to what works, you have a lot of trial and error of what, and no one ever sees those failures of what didn't work. And I don't think franchisors actually put a whole lot of emphasis on the fact that, hey, we had a lot of failures, probably 20 or 30 failures to get to every one success that actually makes it into this model.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. A system of head starts. That's what a franchise is. It's a system of head starts, and you got to collect the value of all those franchisees bringing that brain force to make the experience better and better and better over time.
Yep.
I mean, that's really what you're buying. I think that's part of why you and I like this industry. The franchise businesses, but yeah, it's they've already the collective failure has already made the system better.
Yeah.
So.
Tony, we're almost out of time. Do you have any last thoughts, questions, things that you'd like to share, pose to us here at the Experience Economy podcast?
No, I think it's awesome what you guys are doing. I can't. I mean, it's. I love that someone else believes that technology should keep the promise, and that and I think we're all going to be buying experiences more and more and more. I think I found a club that will, you can belong to, that you can share muscle cars, right? For like 5 days every other month. You can check out, a muscle car, like on a monthly recurring. You don't really need a muscle car every day of the year, but it'd be cool to get one out when it's sunny and nice outside, but that's kind of where I just see it happening over and over. So you're either designing an experience, or your product or service business is going out of business, maybe slowly. But Blockbuster thought it was slowly, didn't think that Netflix was a very good competitor, and didn't think it was worth 20. They offered him 15 million early on, and when they wanted 25, they thought they were out of their mind. And I bet you if you told the CEO of Blockbuster if he'd take that deal now, he'd probably change his mind. But that's kind of where that's disruption is. It's like boiling frog in boiling water, right? It's you don't know it till you're already cooked. So
not Chuck E. Cheese, Toys R Us. Let's look at Toys R Us.
Yeah. I mean, and we could do cliche after cliche after list after list, right? And there's probably ones that we talked about today as an example of ones that are delivering a better experience that are already getting already have a tail of disruption behind them, right? Because it's the velocity is the innovation velocity is getting faster and faster and faster, because the tech is becoming more and more configurable and more design friendly. We have one of our developers is actually talked us into using a code free web dev platform, because he's able to build it even faster than he can normally. I mean, that's really there's no excuse not to design and execute an experience these days, with what we have access to.
I agree. Awesome. All right, well, that about wraps up this episode of the Experience Economy podcast. Tony, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to share and impart your wisdom as we're transforming, from this product and service business to an experience economy. One focused on doing nothing but delivering the ideal customer